do you battle self-doubt?
It's rough. I have imposter syndrome so bad. I didn't go to school for this. I've never really done this before. It's just something I really wanted to do. I love books. Like a lot of times I'm like, I don't feel like I'm good enough. But and then I'm like,
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Woohoo!
I'm Master Joel, and today I have a very special guest. This is author Willa Layne, author of Silver Lies.
Hey
Hello.
guys.
Welcome.
Hi.
So we just realized that we're actually, well, I'm going to BYU Idaho right now, and you graduated from there. So that's great.
I did.
Did
Yep.
you study creative writing?
I did not. I went into agribusiness actually. That's what
Oh,
I got my bachelor's in.
that makes sense. So you're a rancher, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My husband is. I don't know if I would call myself a rancher, but my husband is.
Okay. So how did that happen? You studied, did you study agriculture business? Is that about like ranchers or?
Yeah. Yeah. So it just kind of studies like the back end finances, business type of stuff of like agricultural, from farming, ranching, anything from that aspect.
Mhm.
I like love numbers. I love Excel. And so that was a really cool thing for me to go into to learn about accounting and stuff like that. Um, Honestly, when I went to college, I didn't really know like what I wanted to do. And I went through like three different majors, and that's finally the one I settled on, which my full-time job now is doing that, and I really enjoy it. So writing is just kind of a pastime.
Okay. So when did you start writing?
Probably like in 2020. I started reading a lot, started writing some.
Mhm.
And then in 2020 last year, last like January, I was like, I'm gonna try to write a book. And so, and so I did, and here we are.
Oh, that's fantastic. I
Yeah,
I started writing like 2019, but I really got into it in 2020.
yeah.
I published yet, but
There's not much to do in 2020. So
isn't that true? It's a panic and roll your eyes,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh man. So let's see. Is this the book you've been writing all along? You have book two coming out, right?
Yes. Yep.
So is this the first Silver Lies? Is that the first book that you ever wrote?
No. So I wrote like kind of a self-help book
Hmm.
slash memoir type of thing, but I didn't know if I ever really wanted to publish that. But this was my first like fiction book that I've written. Yes.
I love it. Can you show it to us and read a little bit?
Yes. Yes. This is the cover.
Did you
Show
design
me.
that?
I did not know. Well, I did, and then my cover designer took it and like made it look good.
Very nice.
So, do you want me to read the blurb?
Yes, please.
Okay. Rare, unique, special, but most of all wanted. All words that describe blondes in Novum, all words that Ash despises almost as much as she hates her hair. An unknown virus ripped apart civilization and destroyed millions of lives, leaving few light-haired people in its wake. Years later, life has regressed back to primitive methods of survival in tiny towns like Cedar Hill in the country of Novum. After being abandoned by her parents as a child, Ash was adopted by Nan and Pop. Found in the woods and left for dead, they raised her as their own. She grew up fast, becoming a skilled hunter because it was the only way to survive after Pop died when she was 15. Now at 19 years old, Ash does all she can to stay hidden, being one of the most sought-after people in the country. Survival depends on avoiding the king, the soldiers, and the bounty hunters always on the prowl. Ash's craving for freedom and belonging is like a tangible force ripping her heart in different directions. Diesel is the only friend she has ever known, but the way he looks at her is anything but friendly. With stunning green eyes and dark hair, it would be hard not to take notice of the way she feels when he is around. Ash's secret keeps them apart, but when he finds out the truth, how far will Diesel go to protect her? Does he hold the key to everything she has ever wanted, or will deeply rooted lies tear them apart?
Hmm. It sounds kind of like at least the beginning sounds kind of like a mix between Hunger Games and Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I
It
don't know
sounds,
about Star Wars. I've never heard that, but yeah, definitely Hunger
he's
Games.
being sought after and he's one of
Yeah,
a kind and anyway, it's cool. I like it.
yeah. Thank you.
So how long did it take for you to get that from, well, I want to know everything. Tell me, how was the
Okay.
idea? How did you get the idea all the way to getting it published? Ready, go.
It's a very long process, and I learned so much and crazy amount of information that you have to learn to publish a book. So I got the idea originally in 2020 with COVID. I'm like, virus, what if like this knocked out the whole population? And I've always been really like, I don't know, entertained by dystopian type stories or like post-apocalyptic type stories where, you got to be tough to survive and there's like no one left around and there's no technology. And so that's kind of like where I got the idea from. And, I kind of came up with it in 2020 and thought about it for 3 years. And then finally in 23, I started writing it. And it was a bumpy road, my publishing process was. So I finished it in, I think, like June. And like I didn't know what I was doing. And I got some like beta readers and it was hard because I'm like, I don't know how much money I want to spend on this and how much of an investment I really want to make because I've never done this before. Like it could be terrible, you know. So I made a cover and like my editors were my beta readers. And so I published it in, I think it was like September. I think it was, I can't remember. But like I kept thinking like what if I like would have got the editors and done the things right and got the cover designer and done it right. And so then I actually republished it in January. I I sent it to editors. I got developmental edits, I got line editors, I got the cover and like I did it right and I felt so much better about the book and then I published it again in January. And so that's where we got this one today.
Wow. So
Yeah.
how different is that one from the first version that you published?
It's relatively the same. It's actually got it's dual perspective now, whereas the first time it was only one perspective. Yeah, so you get Diesel's side of things and not just Ash's. But the story is pretty much the same. I mean, there's a few things that are switched around to make the plot a little better, but for the most part, it's the same.
So I imagine they gave you critiques, the editors,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
the real guys.
Yeah.
They gave you critiques and they asked you to change certain things. How long did it
Mm-hmm.
take you to implement those changes?
Couple months. Yeah. Yeah. I
You had to
think
rewrite half of it, right?
Yeah. And then I had to go through and do all my line edits, which takes
Mm.
forever. Does the comma go here or does it not go here?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who struggles with that. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. But like in the end, I'm like, does the comma placement in this one sentence in this 100,000 word book, is it really going to make that much of a difference? And like, I think you just get to this point where you just have to like let some of that stuff go. And like, it's not going to be perfect. Like no book is. So, I mean, make it as good as you can, but like, don't strive for ultra perfection or it's going to take you forever and you're probably never going to publish a book. At least that's how I feel about it. So.
Gotcha. I have this. So my brother, he's an army captain.
Mm-hmm.
Book while he was deployed, and I actually
Mm-hmm.
interviewed him for this. But he told me that when writing a book, you need to strive for B+ quality. Just be able to move on from there.
Yes.
Be A quality.
I like that. I think that's really good advice.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah, it helps a lot with your mental health.
Yes.
Ability. So how have you managed, let's see. How do I ask this? You published it in September and then you republished it in January. So that's like 3.5, 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Rewriting half of your book plus line edits
Yes.
and all that. How did you find the time?
That I stressed myself out and I put my deadlines like way too soon. Like I think I sat at a computer solid 24 hours one day because just to try to get it done. Like the day before I sent out my arcs, like it was bad. And I was like, I'm never going to stress myself out like that again. I am not like, people will get the books when they get the books. Like, I am not sacrificing me for this book, that's like sort of a hobby. It's not my full-time job. It's not like my income. Like, I'm going to do it because I like it. I'm not going to stress myself out. Otherwise, I'm going to like burn myself out of this so bad.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. How old are your kids? Just kind of a range. Mine are like 2 years old, and I have almost a 1-year-old. So for me,
Oh,
they require a lot of attention. But
yep.
I hear that once they're older, they don't require quite as much supervision. So how
Not
did you
quite as
balance
much. I've got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And my older two are in school, so I find a lot of time during the day to get stuff done. But my 2-year-old, yeah, he's needy. I do a lot when he's taking a nap during the day. Otherwise, he's sitting on my lap and pounding on the keyboard, and that doesn't help.
Okay, well, I feel that.
Yeah.
How do you write your books? Do you write by hand? Do you dictate them? That's how I've found to do it, is I go on walks and I have my phone and I just have it transcribe as I'm telling a story, and it saves so much time. But
Really?
yeah, and I can't stand, like, I lived in Mexico for a while,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I was taking a lot of college classes, and I basically
Mm-hmm.
burned my eyes. So blue light really hurts me. I can't stare at computers for a long time. And so I can't sit and type it out because it just
Mm-hmm.
kills me.
Yeah.
So but I can't sit down and write by hand because my kids want to draw on the paper and they
Yeah.
only last so long. So dictating is the only way I've found to
Hmm.
write things.
And I
I don't
feel
know.
like handwriting would take years to write and then transcribe onto a computer.
It actually doesn't take that long. I
Really?
wrote my first 2 stories by hand.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I just write on a computer. I'm pretty
Yeah.
boring. I have never actually thought about doing transcribing your voice either. That's
Mm.
interesting.
It just saves time, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It'd probably like, I don't know, saying it out loud would be different too than just in your head.
It took a bit of practice.
Yeah.
People think you're crazy when you're walking by their houses. It helps if you have your phone there.
Yeah. I'm just talking on the phone. It's fine.
How do you write your first draft without being tempted to delete things? Or as you write, do you delete things? My theory is, my practice is usually, okay, just like spit it out. Let it be as horrible as it
Hmm.
needs to be and just get it done with so you can go through and edit. How do you do it?
I'm getting more that way because I've learned from my mistakes, but I'm the worst at going back. I'm like writing, and then I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that this character sounds, or like I think I want to go change this character, so I go back to the beginning. You have to go back through and change the character, and then I keep writing again, and I'm like, wait, this sounds so much better, and so these people have to think this way now, and so I go back through and do it again, and I did that with the first book, and I did it way too much with the second book, and I'm like, I am not doing that again with the third book. I'm gonna write it, and then I'm gonna go back and edit it because I don't. That takes so much time to go back and do that, and you end up changing it so many times. I think my second book is on like draft 20 at this point, so
Oh,
I'm not gonna do that anymore.
tell me about your second book.
um, so it's just the continuation of Silver Lies. It just follows Ash. Um, she goes to the capital city. She finds out where all the blondes are. She finds out why they're getting hunted. Um, there's a little love triangle going on. um, she finds out a lot about herself. We find out a lot more about like Diesel, the male main character. A lot of the backstory that she had forgotten
Mhm.
um, comes to light. So a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so I am writing a story. I've decided it's finally time for me to actually try to publish something instead of just writing
Do it.
drafts.
Yes.
I'm terrified. Um, because I guess it's easy to, for me, it's easy to write a first draft
Mm-hmm.
because it can be as horrible as it needs to be. And then I get bored.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'll write another book. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Dictate it, right? So I have a bunch of
Uh-huh.
books dictated. They're not on
Yeah.
paper. um, but I'm like, oh gosh, it actually has to be real. If I try to publish it, it actually has to be
Yeah.
good. So I'm terrified. But the one I'm working on that I think I'm going to publish is book 2 that I wrote, the second book
Mm-hmm.
that I ever wrote, or third-ish,
Uh-huh.
third one that I wrote. And I rewrote it as like my 6th book that I wrote. But now I'm
Uh-huh.
going back and sticking more to what it originally was. But it's going to have, I'm scared because it has to have a sequel.
Oh,
It might
yeah.
be a trilogy, and I'm terrified. So how do you go from one book to 2? How do you know where to part the story?
Um, so I had like this outline in my head, and I always knew it was going to be 3 books, so this is a trilogy. And I don't know, I just started writing, and I knew my start point, and I knew like my end point, and like I just kind of filled it in from there. And the same with the second book, like I knew where I wanted to start and I knew where I wanted to end, but like everything in between was, just kind of up in the air, and I came up with it as I went. I mean, obviously I had some plot points that I wanted to hit. But there was an author actually that gave some advice for publishing a first book, and she said if I would have gone back, I would have done a standalone first, because like if you publish your first book in a trilogy or a duology or something, and you find out that it wasn't very good and you don't like it, you have to go off those characters to finish out the trilogy. And I was like, you know what? That's really good advice. I really wish that I would have done a standalone first, because there's things in Silver Lies I'm like, oh, yeah, that could have been better. So that I, that was just a piece of advice that I really liked that I would spread pass the word on, I guess.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
But I mean, if you wanna do a trilogy, I would say go for it too, because I mean, I'm doing it and it's been great. But yeah, publish a book. It's fun, and I am the biggest hype woman. Anybody who wants to publish, I'm like, you go for it.
That's good. Did you try to traditionally publish it?
No, I never did.
So you had
Yeah.
no interest in that?
No, I I don't know. I just don't know very much about it. I know a lot more about indie publishing, and I don't know. I think it's really hard to get into because you have to get an agent and everything, and people get rejected so many times, and I just didn't want to go through that, honestly. And this way I have control over my cover and what I write about and all the things, and I liked that better.
Yeah.
So I never tried to do traditional publishing.
Yeah, I can see that. And there are so many more rules. Like you can't do what you want with your book. You have to give
Yeah.
permission because it's not just your book anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think indie publishing is a lot. I mean, it's a lot of work. You've got to do everything, I mean, from formatting to cover design. I mean, you can do a lot of it, but um I don't know. It's a lot of work. Marketing is a lot of work.
Yeah. How did you get your book ready for peer reviews and beta readers?
Um, Sorry, in what sense?
So, when did you know it was ready to be read by beta readers? And then how did you get their feedback? One of M.E. Hansen that I talked to, she
Mm-hmm.
had a questionnaire that she would make for every chapter
Mm-hmm.
with very specific questions. Um, so I don't know. And I'm sure that's not the only way to do it. I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
smart, but I
Yeah.
just
So I have
my book out is what I'm
yeah. I have a like very basic questionnaire, like just things like, did you like it? Is there any character points that like didn't make sense, or character arcs that didn't make sense? Like, do you like the characters? Stuff like that, that I send out. But I just put it on Google Docs and then I send them the link and then they can like read it on their phone and leave comments as they go.
Okay.
So that's how I did my beta readers, alpha readers, whatever they are.
When did you know it was ready to be read by beta readers? That's a lot of.
When I felt good about the story, I guess.
Mhm.
When I was like, oh, I think it's solid. Like, I like it. There wasn't any points in it that I didn't like. So when I just felt like it was a solid story that was ready to be read, I guess.
And did they suggest anything? Were you surprised by any of the suggestions that you received? And how did you handle the advice or the feedback?
The the first feedback you get, like that's kind of negative, it's kind of hard to swallow. Honestly, it's like, oh, I spent so much time on this book and they hate it and it's not any good and it's garbage and I'm just gonna get rid of it. But like as you write more, it's like you realize that it's helping your writing more than it's like being critical of it. The first like pretty harsh criticism I got of Silver Lies was she like really hated my male main character. She's like, he's terrible, I hate him, but he's a douchebag. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize he was that bad. But as I read back through it, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe he is kind of a jerk. And so I went back and fixed a lot of that stuff, and I think it made it a lot better. I mean, people still don't like him very much, but it made it a ton better than it was.
Was there anything in your book that, oh, there's this advice floating around that says kill your darlings? So, I take that to mean, oh, if there's some part of your book that you really loved, but it's not actually supporting the story in the way that it could, often you just have to shave it off.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way?
I'm feeling that way right now as I'm editing Golden Secrets. Yes. There's a scene that I really love the scene, but it like doesn't really advance the plot. It just doesn't really have a purpose. And I'm like, it's gotta go. And so I've actually been like working on getting rid of it and rewriting it and trying to figure it out. Yeah. It's rough because it's like, I love this scene so much, but it just doesn't fit. So we'll move onward.
How do you develop good characters?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll just move on from that then.
That's, you know, a lot of people have said that to me. Like, your book is very character driven more than like plot driven. Like, it's very like introspective of the characters and what they're feeling and what they're thinking, which I think is a really awesome compliment. But at the same time, like, I don't know how I did that. Like, I just wrote it, like, and I tried to. No, no. I just really tried to like get into the characters and like, what are they feeling and why would they feel this way, and try to really just look inside of them. And, so much so that like I find myself like, these aren't real people, just get over it. Like, crying over the computer at book scenes that aren't even real. So
I really like character-driven books, and I want mine to be like that. I just don't.
Mhm.
I have the bad habit of thinking, "Oh, I'm taking too long on this. I have to move on," and
Yeah,
it's so shallow.
yeah,
That's why I have to go to and edit things and rewrite them.
yeah. And I think that's where like a developmental editor can help a ton too. Because like when I was writing the second book, like I was really just trying to get it written, like get the story set. And like there was a lot of times that like I missed like a character's reaction or how she was feeling right there. And my developmental editor went and pointed all those parts out. She's like, you need an emotional beat here. Like, what is she feeling? And I think that really helped me like grasp it and get into it a lot more of like what the characters are feeling. So other people looking at your work definitely helps.
That's good to know. How did you find these people? these editors?
Instagram mostly.
Oh,
Yeah. Through other authors, I'd see editors, and I start talking to them on Instagram, and then we just kind of developed a online relationship, I guess. And yeah, she's my developmental editor is Bailey Pondy. She's really cool. But yeah, she did a really good job.
great. I found you on Instagram too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Website. It was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice. How do you battle self-doubt?
Ooh, it's rough. um, that is a good question. I have imposter syndrome so bad, like especially because like I didn't go to school for this. Like I've never really done this before. It's just something like I really wanted to do. I love books. Like it's just like this really cool thing that I wanted to do. And like a lot of times I'm like, I don't feel like I'm good enough. But then I'm like, it's like a drop in the bucket, I guess. Like there's so many books out there. Like if somebody wants to read mine, that's just really cool. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard.
Hmm. Most of the doubts from my book bootcamp cadets are regarding imposter syndrome. And
Hmm.
oh, how do I know if I should write my book, if it's any good, if I know someone could write it better? But I read their ideas and they send me a few scenes and they're awesome. A little
Yeah.
bit rough, but they
Yeah.
have such imagination.
Yeah. Like just go for it. Like you can sit around your whole life thinking that you're not good enough, or you can just go do it, find out how not good enough you are, and then get better. I guess. Like I have this problem where I think that I can do anything and I can learn anything. And so that's probably where like, I overcame it. Like, I want to do it, so I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna let anybody stop me. And I think that's just kind of the mindset you have to have. And like if your first book doesn't do great, if it doesn't blow up, like if you get bad reviews, like that's okay. You can get better, you can move on. Most authors that are doing well now, especially like self-published authors, they have a lot of books out there. They have written a lot. And I think like you just need to get the first one out of the way kind of so you can grow and move on.
Mhm. Have you felt like this second book is easier?
Yes, a
Oh,
lot easier. I've learned a lot. Um, I mean, the writing was a little bit harder because, I was trying to figure out my writing process a little more. But like as far as the publishing and like the marketing of it, it's been way easier because I did it once and I know what I'm doing now.
did you feel stuck with because it was book two? Like
Yeah.
you, mm,
Yeah, there was like so in November of last year, I think I was like at 60,000 words or something. And like I sat on it for ever until like February. And then all of a sudden, like, had this idea and I ran with it. And like now it's at 120,000 words. And I wrote that in like a month because I just, it clicked. It finally clicked. I thought about it for like 3 months and it finally worked out.
well, and that's an entire NaNoWriMo, more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job.
Like, if I get an idea, I can sit down and write really fast, but like then I get stuck and then I have to like think through it for so long and then I can write again. But
Mhm.
yeah,
So, do you sit down and write every day, or is it when inspiration strikes?
I try to, especially right now, I try to sit down and like force myself to get through the problems because, I have a deadline that I need to get to.
Hmm. And how do you make sure that your villains are deep and not just superficial? Or do you like superficial villains? Because that's a thing, and that's okay.
Mine are probably more superficial. That's something I've been working on because I'm like, they're kind of just evil and there's no reason for them to be evil. So let's make them a little bit more of a backstory, you know?
And you don't always have to show that in book one. Sometimes it can wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you use the like plot archetypes?
No.
Awesome. Okay.
Like what? I don't know what that is.
Oh, this is a hero's journey book where we have an orphan on a farm who has an intense destiny to become a hero, but the bad guy was hunting for them, so their mentor put them on a farm in hiding, but now it's time for them to become a hero and to defeat the bad guy, but their mentor is helping them, and the mentor died. Like this, like a Harry Potter,
Yeah.
Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Yeah.
Lots of them that I can't think of right now. But
yeah, no, I think there's kind of like so I actually talked about this with my editor, because there's like these plot points that like every good book has, kind of. So like a hero, it's always kind of like a hero's journey where they have the beginning action scene, and then like the midpoint, and then like the hero's darkest moment, and then they come out of it at the end. I mean, there's a lot more than that, but basically that's the story that I try to write off of.
me too. I stick to
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
And I love those stories. They're very satisfying.
Yes, they are.
Here's a bit of a change of topic. How does your religion play into the stories that you write? And I can preface that if you want, or if you're good to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I used the word preface correctly there.
Yes, you did. I think you did.
So I have been playing with the idea as I'm preparing this book boot camp, because there are lessons for each week. A little lesson to help you, think about your story and get revved up to write.
Yeah.
And in one of them, I realized that the most inspiring stories have a hero, someone with a destiny to save the world, and they have to go through hardship, and they have to do it often alone, and they have darkest moments. And I've noticed that the most inspiring stories mirror Jesus Christ and his journey, and how everything was dependent upon him succeeding in completing the atonement for us, and him having a unique power. Now, he was perfect, so our stories don't quite mirror it exactly, but having something similar. And I think those stories where someone sacrifices something very dear to them, where they're doing something alone and they're struggling, but they keep going and they stay true to the goodness inside them, even with all the pressure crushing on them. I think that's very inspiring. So that's very common in the hero's journey, where it reflects that. So what do you think? Ready, go.
I've never heard it like put that way before, but I really like that. I didn't want to like put religion in my book too much, because like people are free to do what they want. Like I don't want to force anybody, like my opinions on anybody. But I do think that there is good and there is bad. And like the undercurrent of the story kind of is like there's bad people that do good things and there's good people that do bad things, and we are all just here trying to figure ourselves out and trying to strive to be the best people that we can be, and trying to learn the most about ourselves, and looking for the light, and trying to figure out our own journey, kind of thing. And I think that kind of goes along with what you were talking about. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on to this podcast. Tell us where we can find your book and where we can find your media accounts.
Yeah, so I'm on pretty much all the social medias. I don't keep up with them very well, but I am on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. I also have a website that you can buy signed copies at. It's willalayne.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter. I try to send out a newsletter every month. I'm not very good at it. And my books are on Amazon. They're on Kindle Unlimited. If you have that, you can read for free. And also the hardcovers and paperbacks should be pretty much everywhere else because published through Ingram Sparks.
Awesome. And when does book 2 come out?
Book 2 comes out August 27th.
Well, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't forget to leave a comment telling me who you think I should interview next. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.